A lot of you guys have asked for a full behind the scenes and breakdown of our latest fitness short film, Become Who You Can't. And I truly appreciate all the comments, the likes and all the interest you've shown in the video. So in this video I will do a full breakdown of the pre-production as well as the production on set, what equipment and cameras we used and why, and I will also talk a little bit about the post-production side and our sound design choices. My name's Damien Cooper and welcome to Monkey Pixels.
We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
I already had the idea planned in my mind and I wanted to go for this early bird, first one in, first one out of the gym mentality. I wanted to start with an outdoor location where you can actually see the sunrise and our talent working out, and then later progressing into a more stereotyped gym kind of situation where he's going all out and pushing himself to the limit. Speaking of talent, and here's my first tip for you. Whenever you can work with a professional, do it. It's totally worth it. Your gym bro might work out, but it's usually hit and miss. I found Martin on Instagram and he's a professional, internationally published model as well as a fitness coach. And I've worked with friends of mine or non-professionals in the past, and a lot of the times it was really hit and miss and they couldn't display the emotion that I wanted to have in the video, or they were just not cooperative enough. With Martin, it was the total opposite. Meeting up at 4 AM in the morning on a Sunday was no problem for him, and I really did make him work for it. I had him do hill sprints for 10 times in a row and he never complained once. And even after we got into the gym, it was the total opposite of what I was used to working with non-professionals some of the time. He was actually pushing me to do more and he had more suggestions and told me, hey, what about if we do this exercise and should I do this? And he also pitched in some cool creative ideas that I actually ended up using in the video. Let's talk location scouting. I've been living in Vienna for a while, so I got a pretty good feel for the locations here. But then again, I'm also in a rut when it comes to them because I usually have my favorite spots and I keep shooting at the same locations. So I asked Martin for his advice because he's obviously in nature a lot and he works out outside, so he actually had some pretty cool suggestions. Fun fact, the first location we shot at was actually the location Belle and I shot our first video together ever. So I already knew the location, but I didn't really have it in mind for this, but it was perfect. So thanks to Martin for suggesting it. And since I've already been there, I already knew what the place would look like, and I also knew the time of day and where the sun would actually rise. The next location is a well-known CrossFit gym here in Vienna, and luckily for us, Martin is actually a fitness coach over there, so he had full access to the place at 6 AM on a Sunday. And since we already knew when we were going to shoot, we also knew where the sun would be to get this really nice lens flare kind of action when shooting in the outdoor locations. So my overall tip, do some location scouting, especially if it's a bigger budget project or if it's a passion project. Just don't go there hoping for the best, because we also shot a fitness video a while ago and we actually relied on our talent to provide the location, and the location really wasn't up to the task and the overall video was a fiasco and we never even published it. So do your due diligence and actually put in the work beforehand, because it actually makes a lot of sense for the final video. Moving on to the production day. We planned in 1 day of total shooting, and let's start with the equipment. Initially we wanted to shoot the entire thing on the C300 Mark III, but unfortunately we didn't get the C300 for that long, so we had to use our Bmpcc6k. And in the end I was actually really happy we did, because the Blackmagic was a really good choice for that kind of film and the mood that I wanted to portray. The Blackmagic has a gorgeous image, it has a high dynamic range as well as this little cinematic film look to it, which worked perfectly for this kind of video. And now let's talk about our lenses. Our lens choices were pretty much all Canon L series lenses, starting with the 16-35 2.8 version 3, going over to the 24-70 2.8 version 2, and throwing in the 100mm 2.8 macro. I think I did about one shot on the 24mm 1.4, but that's pretty much it. The majority was definitely shot on the 16-35 as well as the 100mm macro. As for our wide angle shots, we used the Tokina 11 to 20mm 2.8 that I already did a review on recently. And this was really good because in tight spaces we wanted to get a wider angle of view to get really up in his face, and I used this lens a lot on this shoot. I used the lens in the gym a lot, where I wanted to get really up close in his face and wanted to get these unique low angle shots, especially when he was doing the Superman push-ups or when he was doing the ab workout outside. There would have been no other way to do this without such a wide angle lens. As for capturing the audio, we used the video mic NTG. I also did a review about this, and that was actually perfect and it stayed on our camera for the entire time, so I could capture some on-location sounds as well as the action. I decided to not use an external SSD and record everything to our Angelbird CFast card because I was really rough on the camera. I was running in high grass and I just don't like having anything dangling off my camera, especially cables that could yanked out in such high-paced movements. As for our external monitor, we used the LUT 7, and this was actually perfect for the job because it made my life so much easier pulling focus on set, and I already did a review on this one as I did for most of the equipment we used, so just browse through our YouTube channel and you'll find a lot of content on the Bmpcc6k and all of our equipment. As for recording options, as many of you know, I'm using Final Cut Pro 10, so unfortunately I can't use B-RAW because Final Cut Pro 10 doesn't support it. So for this we chose ProRes 422, and in hindsight I would have loved to record everything in ProRes HQ just to get a little bit more detail in these wide angle shots, but in the end it actually worked out pretty well. I captured everything in 4K DCI, although I set my camera to an aspect ratio of 2.4:1 because I already knew that this is going to be the aspect ratio that I want the film to be delivered in. I know I already said that I only wanted to do one day of shooting, but then going up there and seeing this awesome scenery, I knew that I had to get some drone shots in. Unfortunately, we crashed our drone in Cyprus last year, so I didn't have one at my disposal, so I went online and bought one on Amazon. Unfortunately, Belle took the car to Italy, so I didn't have one to drive up that hill. So I took my fitness bike at 4 AM in the morning and biked uphill, and that was killing me because my bike doesn't have any gears, but it was totally worth it in the end. I'm curious to know, would you have done the same thing for 5 seconds of drone shots, and do you think it's actually worth it in the final video? And the drone in question here is the DJI Mavic Pro 2, and I didn't go for the Mavic Air 2 because I just don't like its image quality and I much prefer the quality coming out of the Mavic 2 Pro. So now that we talked about all the lenses that I used for the short film, let me explain to you when I used which one and why. So basically the mixture was between really wide angle and really up close. So I wanted to get the wide angle to get really up in his face, to have the audience really feel the emotion and feel like they're present while he's working out. When using the 100mm on the other hand, I wanted to use it to either get more detailed shots of my actor or to have the audience feel like an observer looking from the outside in. And I used this lens more in the slower shots opposed to the high action shots. If you've been following this channel for a while now, you know that I'm a huge advocate of handheld filming. There's obviously a place for gimbal and smooth movements, but in a rough fitness movie like this, it just wasn't. That being said, this entire video was handheld, and I used my handheld rig on the Bmpcc6k that I already made a video about. This way you can get some organic but still smooth shots if you want to, but for the high-paced action shots I actually like to have it rough and also have to have this shaky handheld vibe to it. I actually just realized that the blue light in the back went out, but whatever. But speaking of blue light, let's start talking about color grading and post-production. Like I already mentioned, I filmed everything in ProRes because I'm editing in Final Cut Pro 10. This is my editor of choice. I like the plugins, I like the speed of it, so this is where I do all my grading and also all my editing. So let's start talking about the rough cut. The intro I already envisioned way before we even started shooting. I wanted to have it play without music, just the on-location sounds, and switch between different shots and build up a nice riser up until the actual title of the movie. From here on out, I wanted to gradually move up the energy of the video and just increase the speed and power of it. And this was achieved with starting with slow motion shots, a build up in the voiceover as well as in the music. Then towards the end of the video, I chose faster paced cuts as well as a more energetic voiceover, and obviously the music was higher power as well. Let's talk color grading. I'm always shooting in the film look on the Blackmagic Pocket 6k, so now we need to bring this flat profile into a Rec 709 color space. In this particular case, I did it manually, but I could have also chosen our film to Rec 709 LUT that is included in all our Blackmagic LUT packs. Speaking of our Blackmagic LUTs, I used all of our LUTs for this project to get this really filmic look that I wanted to have for the entire film. And if you're interested in our LUTs, I link them in the description below, and they're currently on sale too. Next up, I wanted to get some kind of a filmic anamorphic look, and I achieved this in 2 steps. One is a plugin from Motion VFX called mFilmLook. With this plugin, you have a lot of options to actually make your footage look more cinematic. And the one that I chose for this one was the chromatic aberrations on the edges of my footage. This gives a little bit more character to your footage and makes it look like it was shot on a vintage anamorphic lens. It's really subtle, but it does work well. I also added a little bit of film grain, also really subtle with the mFilmLook pack, but I didn't really want to overdo it for this one. And the second step to actually achieve that anamorphic look is the anamorphic lens flares. I actually tried to get as many natural lens flares in as possible, but since I was shooting on just regular photo glass, I obviously didn't get these characteristic anamorphic lens flares. So here I used another plugin from Motion VFX, and this one is called mFlare 2, and this one is incredibly powerful with built-in mocha trackers, and I already made an entire video just about this plugin. As I already said, I chose a music that has a really high build-up and is again somewhat cinematic. And for our choice we used Epidemic Sound, and if you want to check them out, there's a link in the description below. I made some minor changes to the track to actually fit my pacing and fit the duration of the movie better, but I didn't really have to do too much to it. Next up, let's talk about the sound design. And this was a mixture between on-location sound as well as Foley afterwards. And here's a big tip for you when it comes to sound design. When shooting on location, try to capture the sound from the location without any distractions, without your actor moving or anybody saying anything. Because now you can use this track, put it underneath an entire scene to get a consistent ambient sound. For most of the shots in the gym, we couldn't really use the on-location sound because there was playing music in the background. So here I went to Artlist to get these gym sounds as well as inhale and exhale sounds, and there's also a link in the description below, and you can get 2 months for free if you sign up through our link. As this was a personal project, and especially in COVID-19 times, the budget was really limited, I actually went on Fiverr to find a voiceover for our project. And on Fiverr, you can get really high quality voiceovers for really cheap. But it's also hit and miss, and I had really good experiences, but I also had some bad ones. And this one was kind of mixed, to be honest. And if there's one thing about this entire project that I'm not 100% satisfied with, it's probably the voiceover. So my recommendation, if you have the budget, get a professional voiceover that you can actually give directions to and that you can actually go back and forth to get the best results possible. But if you don't have the option and you don't have the budget, Fiverr is actually a good option for you. I also really like having the talent speak their own voiceover because this gives it a way more personal touch. But if you're in a country where English isn't the native language, this often ends up with really bad results. And since I made a lot of bad experiences in the past, I didn't even try that one, and I went straight to Fiverr to get a Native American to do the English voiceover for me. Alright, that's it. I think we talked about everything in depth, and I hope you liked this video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more behind the scenes on future projects, and I hope to see you on the next one.